Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and I try to answer any questions you might have about Olympus cameras or photography in general. And, like I said, just to catch up. And it's always the highlight of my day to come in and see everybody again. I wish I could just stream 24/7 to be honest, but, you know, I guess we all got to make a living too, right? But yeah, that intro I just did, Thomas, it was whatchamacall. Oh, let me go to the right screen here. Oops, that's not it. This one. Oh, no chat. Always something, right? Let me fix that real quick. And I hope you guys can all hear me, right? Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, there's audio. Good. Let me fix up the stream. I'm late as always, but that should bring it up. Well, let's see who's here. I see Leon and System Natura. Thomas and John, good to see you. John Truman, Jim Jones, Alan, Plato, Marco. Hey, Marco, how you doing? Have to run, but we'll catch up at the tail end of today's stream. Okay, yeah. I need to talk about Marco for a few minutes, but I'll come back to that. We're going to do a live stream collaboration together, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And like I said, just somebody let me know you can hear me okay, and see me okay. Hopefully everything's okay. I'm a little bit low or high in the screen. Maybe put my chair down a bit there. Or sit back. Yeah. I should sit back more. My neck is feeling pretty good today. And I'm down to just taking one ibuprofen, as needed at this point per day. So it's definitely getting better. And I think, another couple of weeks, it'll be like it never happened, I hope. But okay, let me move the microphone closer. I've decided that seeing the microphone in the stream is no big deal. I used to try and hide it all the time. Let me arrange my stuff so I can sit back. But okay, good. I'm glad the sound is good, and I'm gonna turn on the low cut filter. It's not something I use very often, but it should be, my voice should be a little less bassy at least. I feel like a lot of microphones, they tend to make a person's voice too bassy, and it doesn't sound right to me. I kind of like a nice clean audio. And this seems to be, if I set it to 150 kilohertz, the cutoff, it cuts off some of the lower tones in my voice, which, of course, I don't know. The voice I hear in my head is different than what people hear. So maybe I'm just trying to make it sound like more the voice in my head. I don't know. Remember when I don't know, when I was younger anyway, and I'm sure this is everybody, but you'd hear your voice on a recording for the first time. It was probably cassette tape back in the day, but and your voice sounded so different to yourself. And everybody else says, no, that sounds just like you. And you're like, no, I sound terrible. I hate my voice. But now, when I rewatch the streams, it sounds okay. I actually like the voice I hear on the stream better than what I hear in my own head while I'm talking. Yeah, I'm hearing voices in my head. It's so true. Especially when I'm on painkillers. Um, but yeah, multiple voices. It's but yeah, those 10 years ago when I took some painkillers, when I had the prescription for it, it used to give me really weird dreams, and I had a very hard time telling between reality and dreaming. Only when I was in the dream. When I was in the dream, I was kind of lucid, and then at some point I was like, am I dreaming or not? I couldn't tell. And then I would do things in my dream that I was like, I wouldn't be able to do this in real life. And I couldn't do them because my dream was acting just like real life. And then when I woke up, I realized that I was dreaming. But then while I'm awake, I'm questioning, could this be the dream world, right? But yeah, 2020 was a bad dream. Yes, so let me check the comments here. Oh, hey, David, how are you? Seraphin's here, Lauren's here, you've jumped in. Awesome, soft fun. Hi, Scott Mumford. It does sound better. Good. I let me put the chat window up. See if I can do that without ending the stream. There we go. Where was I going? I did want to. There was a couple of things I didn't get to last stream that I wanted to talk about in this stream, and since then, uh, Peter's done another video, Peter Forsgaard, about the high-res upscale in Photoshop, which is interesting, but I'm not impressed as he was. Also, Robin Wong, which I mentioned briefly in the last stream, but he's now again an Olympus visionary, as Plato's pointing out. So it's great that Olympus or OM Digital Solutions reached out to him and continued that relationship. So I'm very happy for Robin. Congratulations. And of course, Jimmy and Peter, they have sort of some coffee. I forget what it's called. I saw a post on Facebook. They're doing something like within the hour, in about an hour from now, live, and they're going to have a guest on talking about food photography potentially, because I guess they're having this famous food photographer come on. So if you guys want to cut out at 11 o'clock and go join that stream, I don't mind. I tried to think of a way, to try not to overlap, my fellow photographer streams, right? My peers, so to speak. I'd like to call them friends, um, because it's their streams have at least as much, if not much more information than I could ever deliver, because they're actually full on professional photographers that have been shooting for most of their life, right? Whereas I've only been shooting, it's been 9 years now. Um, but the first few years don't count because I was shooting Sony and Nikon, right? And it wasn't until 2016 that I started shooting Olympus. And in 2016, uh, well, it's 2014 or 15 was about when I really started to get into my professional, started making money with my camera. Maybe a little sooner than that, but give or take, in real estate photography. Uh, but those guys have been doing professional photography for a much longer time, and they have a lot more experience. So I always try when I set up my streams not to overlap theirs if I'm paying attention, because they, like Jimmy streams every Wednesday, Peter is like once a month on Tuesdays, and those are the only two I have to watch out for. But I'm finding that they're trying to stream more, like they're doing one Sunday today in about an hour that's overlapping this one. And it's much easier for me to change my schedule for you guys than probably it is for them when they're coordinating with other people, right? Um, yeah, Systema Natura. Let me find my mouse so I can put this up. Um, so Great Robin's talents are acknowledged. I understand from Red 35, Jimmy Chang, that there are new developments about to be around from Olympus, OMDS. Yeah, I heard that on his, I watch Jimmy's streams when I can, and once in a while I'll participate, but most of the time I don't go into the chat section when I go into Jimmy's streams, because I know how hard it is to follow the chat, messages when there's a lot of other conversations going on. And, I just, I know he's totally fine with me being there, and as um and I try to answer questions, but at the same time, I don't want to fill up the chat section with, uh, tons of stuff like highs back and forth and what's going on and what about this? You know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like I'm intruding in a way on someone else's stream. But I shouldn't feel that way because for myself, I welcome Jimmy and Robin and Peter and Maddie, anybody to come into my streams anytime, and chat with you guys. And it's okay if the chat gets filled up. I love it. I love it when the chat section's filled up and you guys are talking to each other, helping each other out. Because, like I said, is many of you have so much more experience than I do, and bring up valid points that sometimes I overlook, right? Um, and I'll have to go back and say, "Oh yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't think of that, or I forgot about that point." Which reminds me. Oh, hey Walter, how are you? Good to see you. It has been a while. And Michael White's here. Good to see you. Seraphin, hi. Um, Stephen Long says, uh, let me pull this up if I can find it. Nope, there it is. It jumped. They're on Clubhouse. It's an app, an iOS Apple only. So yeah, they're going to be on Clubhouse today. Apparently, you need an invite to watch it and all that. So if you've been invited, definitely check that out. Go over there. Don't hang out here. um, but okay. See what else we got. If anyone has time, could you see if my new YouTube name, Systema Natura, comes up in a YouTube search? Yeah, so I think he used to his previous screen name was Nature with Music. Let me pull this up. So basically what he wants you to do is Google his new screen name, Systema Natura, Naturae. I don't know how to pronounce that, but uh, and see where it comes up in the search results. And then if you could, I think it would be if you could say, okay, system sure I searched your name in YouTube and it came up number 2 on my list, and also mention that you are a subscriber when you did the search. Because I think it'll be good information for him if he knows that non-subscribers where his channel is coming up in the search versus subscribers, right? So non-subscribers versus subscribers. Because when I did the search, you came up number 3 on my list, but I'm a subscriber to your channel. So I'm wondering if that's biasing my search results in any way. So if you do that for System Natura, let him know you're a subscriber or not. And then if you like what you see there, of course, subscribe to his channel. Um, and that also reminds me, another thing is uh, our friend Ben, who did I did the collab live stream on astrophotography with him, a couple of weeks ago. He's almost at 1,000 subscribers. I think he's like, 5 or 6 away from hitting 1,000. So if you're interested in astrophotography and using your Olympus camera for astrophotography, definitely check out his channel. And I would, recommend you subscribe to it. Not to get him to 1,000, but because you find that you're interested in astrophotography with your Olympus camera. And he's cranked out a couple of videos this week that overcame some other challenges he was having, with long exposures in particular, because, we're limited to 60 seconds in camera, but he came up with a way using bulb mode to do, virtually up to 30 minutes per exposure using the tethering tools, right? Olympus Capture. So, and he's really a terrific guy, and I'm gonna go up and meet him in a couple of weeks, if everything goes right. the weather and my schedule and everything goes smoothly. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to go up and see him. We're going to learn. I'm going to learn as much as I can about astrophotography. So it's really it's going to be a humongous educational and privilege for me to get to know Ben and to learn from Ben directly. And then, of course, I'll share what I learned with you uh, from that visit. Okay, and let me see. There was another question. Oh, what happened to my neck? I you know, my posture when I'm streaming like this, and I started streaming like 20 hours a week, for the last 6 months. I think aggravated the discs in my neck, and they became slightly herniated. Because 10 years ago, for however I did it, I got 3 herniated discs in my neck, which was excruciating pain. This time, it wasn't quite as bad, but it was hard. It was probably about 50% of what it was 10 years ago. So um, I cut back on my streaming down to 4 to 6 hours a week for the past month, really, and wearing a neck brace and heat and all the things you do to recover without surgery or shots, right? And it's finally recovering. I mean, I'm probably about 80% there in terms of feeling right, but I'm still only half the man I was before this happened. Because if I start to get active and play fetch with my dog Ellie or do anything, uh, it's like that. I go right back into a very uncomfortable, painful, stiff neck. So I can't get too active yet until it's fully healed. And then, of course, I need to start exercising to build up my neck muscles, and of course, pay attention to my posture, all of that stuff. But anyway, that's long story short. And Seraphin, oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Yeah, let me put up Michael. I'm sorry, Michael. Let me put up his channel, a link to his channel. I'm sitting there talking about it. It's called the Narrowband channel, but I'll put a link up for you. All right. He is currently at 993 subscribers. And here is the link to his channel. So again, if you're interested in astrophotography, definitely subscribe, hit the bell notification, like his videos, etc. All this stuff uh, everyone tells you to do for your favorite YouTube channels. But I can definitely highly recommend Ben. He's an excellent teacher and is certainly an excellent astrophotographer, and he uses Micro Four Thirds equipment. Um, and let's see what else we got here. Uh, Serge had a question at 10:18, so let me scroll up to that. Here it is. Let me read this. It says here, I hear often that f11 is supposed to be standard landscape photographer aperture. Is this the aperture work also for Micro Four Thirds as the standard one, or is that the equivalent? Yeah, Micro Four Thirds equivalent would be f5.6. And I would test between f5.6 and f8 for when you're going out and shooting and doing your scouting for your woodland photography, which Serge has been posting a lot of his woodland photography into in my forum. And it's awesome to see him go out there, and he's got some great images. So check those out on the forum. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, f5.6 would be the Micro Four Third equivalent. But again, you have to kind of test, right? Take a picture, check the focus. They say if you on full frame, if you shoot at f11 and focus about 1/3 of the way into the frame, you should get basically infinity focus. That's an extremely simplified way of figuring out your what do they call it? There's some photography term for that. For that, I can't remember what it is now because I'm not really a landscape guy. So but it's where you figure out the focus point to achieve infinity focus, right? Depending on your lens and your sensor and all of that. But rule of thumb, f11, 1/3 of the way into the frame, and you're pretty safe. Um, so on Micro Four Thirds it would be f5.6, but I found even f5.6 uh, doesn't quite give me the infinity focus on the few landscape shots that I have. But again, I wasn't conscious of where I was focusing at in the frame because 1/3 of the distance is different than 1/3 of the way into your frame, right? Because if you have a lot of things in front of your frame in your scene and you focus on that, everything behind that's going to be out of focus. So it has to be 1/3 the distance. Like I said, rule of thumb. It's not an exact thing, and there are depth of field calculators online that you can search for to help you with that, to calculate that infinity focus point. But yeah, they're talking f11. They're talking about uh, full frame, so you convert that to Micro Four Thirds to f5.6. And hey, Noe's here. How you doing, Noe? Good to see you. Noe also has a channel here. He's a more of a creative type though, and does a lot of night infrared and anime type photography. I haven't seen your channel recently, so I don't know if you're into something else now. But a few months ago, when I was watching you a little bit more regularly, you were really into. You were still doing a lot of the night photography. So we did a collab. Gosh, it's been too long. We should do another one. Maybe when the weather gets a little warmer for me and things open up in terms of the restrictions. It would be fun to do that. Maybe come onto the channel on a live stream and show your work and give some tips and all of that. But I'll reach out to you about that. But yeah, Noe. So check out Noe's channel. Let me pull up his screen name here so you can see it. But he's very, very creative and a published photographer, I think, for National Geographic. Um, and he's very, very down to earth. Oh, I can't find it now. It's too far gone. So let me do it this way. I'll just type it in. Here's a link to Noe's channel. Yeah, you've been doing a lot of photo walks lately. I have chimed in on your live streams when you do your live photo walks time to time. But here's a link to Noe's channel. And I recommend you check it out. And of course, if you want to learn that kind of style of photography and techniques and post processing, uh, he does a good job with doing some. He has some videos on editing in Lightroom to get certain looks. And like I said, he's very, very down to earth. He doesn't talk about gear or you know doesn't get sponsored. I mean, he's all about teaching what he knows, right? And sharing his vision with all of you. So it's really a YouTube channel in its most pure form. And when YouTube first started, right, people just wanted to share their lives or whatever funny videos with the world. And Noe's channels, I think, is still at the heart of that. Um, he's not pushing it for business or to drive business to his personal business. He's doing it just for you guys, 100%. So I really like that. Um, oh, and you got a new book coming out too. That's cool. Like I said, I haven't watched in a couple months. I'm sorry. I You mostly go live these days, yeah. And oh yeah, I did watch one of your photo editing lives about a month or so ago. That's true. Um, Still gold there. Um, and System Insurer has a question at 10:27. Let me see. Here we go. All right. When I get a memory card full in slot 1, is there a way I can set it to automatically switch to slot 2? I use control screen to change slots. Yeah. Yeah, you just have to change the modes. Let me get a dual memory card camera out that has a battery in it. Okay. So, let's see if I turn this on. I got a picture. Yeah. Wow, look at my desk. It's a mess. But I'll zoom in here. Okay, so let me fix the screen so you guys can see it better. Turn the brightness down. It's hard for me to see it, but oh, and then I got to turn off the green screen. Hold on. Bang. Okay. A lot of glare, but yeah, let me see if I can remember this. Go into the menu. I have mine preset. Well, I just reset this camera, but I do have it preset normally to do exactly what you're talking about. Sorry, you may not be able to hear me right. Let me move the mic. Hold on. Let me hold it so I can look at it. Let's see. We got this. I think it's in the J menu. Oh, no, H menu. It's in menu H. Card slot settings. Yeah. Okay. I'll do a video on this. This is a good question, right? And let me darken this a little. Oh, it's not making any difference. If I go into movie mode, I'm so unprepared for this stream. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Now it's easy to see, right? Get rid of the icons. There. All right. And refocus. Okay, so yeah, you go in. This is the M1 Mark III. I can't show you on the M1 Mark II, but you want to go into card slot settings, and then over here, save settings, and you have standard. So it records to the signed card only. Independent. It says save to both cards applying their respective settings. Even if one card becomes full, the other card can still be saved to. So this is basically writing to both cards at the same time. That's not what you wanted. Uh, There was a dual independent too. Hold on. I probably need to put 2 memory cards in. Let me do that. I'm so unprepared. I do know this answer because I use it in my professional work. But I said it once and then I never had to set it again because it's a preset. And I saved it to a custom mode on my mode dial. All right, there we go. Now that I got 2 memory cards in, dual same. This will fill up both cards, but if one card becomes full, it's not going to continue writing on the second card. And then dual same, and even if one card becomes full, the other card can be written to. Yeah, that's same as dual independent. Auto switch. Okay, so when the designated card becomes full, switches to the other card to continue. So this is the one you want, auto switch. When it comes to, and what that does is it forces card slot 1 to record both. So what I'll do, that's the short answer. What I need to do is actually, what I need to do is actually make a video on this. This is a great question. One of my Ask robtrek videos, and go into more detail because I'm just going to fluster here if I if I try and show you now because I'm not prepared to answer it directly with all of the caveats and examples. But the short answer is just put it on auto switch. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Hyperfocal distance. Thank you, John. Let me pull this up. This is a 1026. Yeah, so when I was talking about when I got the question from Serge about f5.6 versus f5.11, or when I was talking to Serge about getting infinity focus and talking about depth of field for landscapes, what you want to search for actually is a hyperfocal distance calculator, not a depth of field calculator. So my mistake. So search for hyperfocal distance. So hyperfocal distance means where do you focus, at what distance do you focus to achieve infinity focus in front of and behind the camera effectively, right? And I think there are calculators that are even more sophisticated that will put in the pixel pitch of the sensor along with the focal length and the sensor size, right? Micro Four Thirds versus full frame, APS-C, etc. So you want to find the most advanced hyperfocal distance calculator, and I'm sure there's apps like PhotoPills and things like that that'll do that as well. But yeah, just to be more specific, or to give the correct answer instead of the wrong answer I gave before, it's called the hyperfocal distance calculator. Thank you. Okay, Bob Finley. Oh, and thank you for the coffee, Bob, the other day. I appreciate that. Bob bought me a few copies from the link below. And okay, so that answered at 1027. Casper Nyberg at 1031 has a comment. Okay, so Casper says, I just started a new Facebook group page in English for my macro and aquarium photography. It's called the Macroverse, a word hidden in the details. Okay, so Macroverse on Facebook. Let me see if I can find that for you. For everyone, I should say. I go to Facebook. I mean, I'm probably already joined, but let me just make sure. Let me drag this over so people can see it. I think this is it, right? But this is not in English. Uh, oh, this is all in English. Okay. So Casper does a lot of macro photography. So he has the 60 macro, and also, dang it, why is? I'll leave this up. Let me just put a link in the comments for you, so you guys can go right to it. Uh, One other thing I need to do is move my big head on this side, and then just talk to the camera instead of looking at the screen backwards. Okay, but there we go. That's Casper. He uses the 60 macro, and I'm sure some other techniques. Also, he has the 100 to 400 lens that he does some close-up photography, which is virtually macro. I saw a post on, I think, on my forum of like a moth on the ground or something that you did and shared with everyone. So that was cool. And Jan has a question. There's something that I really don't like about Olympus, and that is the in-camera time lapse. It is something they should really improve. It's so bad and so far behind what Panasonic can do. Really? I found the in-camera time lapse pretty sophisticated, actually. But I never really looked at the Panasonic one. But the in-camera time lapse on Olympus, you can set the start time, the interval time, the number of frames, and then if you want to create a movie after that, and then you have a couple options for creating a movie, even 4K on the EM10 Mark II. So you can do 4K movies on the EM10 Mark II through the time lapse feature. So that's curious. What does Panasonic have that Olympus doesn't? Because interval, I didn't find, because I've used the Panasonic intervalometer when I was doing some other testing. I didn't really look at it thoroughly, but I turned it on, activated, and used some of the basic things, that you would do with an intervalometer. Um, and I don't recall seeing anything there that I thought was particularly superior or had additional features. But that's interesting. Um, oh, the frame rates are a disaster. You mean when it's creating the movie? Maybe. Jan is saying the frame rates are a disaster. So I assume that's when you're creating a movie. Because, yeah, it's limited to like 10 or 15 frames. There's only a couple of choices there. If Panasonic gives you more choices on that respect, yeah, I can see where that would be a clear advantage on the intervalometer. Uh, the alternative is the way we used to do it, right? We used to import all those frames into Lightroom or Photoshop and create our own movie from it, right? Or into DaVinci Resolve. I've never done it that way. I've done it that way once or twice, but uh, I just use the in-camera movie creator myself that's in the Olympus. And Commodore is asking, does anyone have a good Android hyperfocal app? So that was at 1042. I don't use, like I said, I don't worry about hyperfocal and all of that. I'm not a very sophisticated photographer. I'm kind of like Noe, right? I just pushed the shutter button. I'll never forget that in one of his videos. He would say something like, "You want any photography tips from me? Here it is. Push the shutter button." Um, so I went too far, but let me scroll down. And official mod. I don't know who that is, but hello. Yes, there is. Let's see. Uh, Official mod. You're welcome to stay, but let's not uh clog up the chat section, okay? With unnecessary things. Let's see. I ran into a question. Ed Krisiak says, for an amateur using time lapse, it works for me. I'm not an expert using the time lapse. Okay. Like I said, it works well enough, but I never really looked at the Panasonic one closely. Oh, thank you, David. Yeah, I'm sorry, official mod. I do actually have moderators here. And ImageWriter has a question, so let me pull that up. That was at 10:43. Okay. He says, I cannot achieve sharpness on distance objects. For example, leaves of a tree in landscape photo on 8mm fisheye pro at any aperture. Any recommendations? Ah, I think um, I think there's a couple of issues. There's two potential issues, right? One is that there's motion in the frame. So if there's any breeze or anything moving the leaves, you just need to use a faster shutter speed so that the leaves stay still, or the shutter captures a short enough amount of time that the leaves look like they're frozen. So I would try a much faster shutter speed uh, for one, right? Because motion blur is when most people talk about motion blur, they say use double use a shutter speed that's double your focal length or half your focal length, I should say, because it's really a inverse relationship. But it's an 8mm fisheye, so that rule would say try to use 1/16 of a shutter or faster. So it's possible that the camera's choosing too slow a shutter speed for you. So try forcing a shutter speed of like 1/500th of a second, 1/300th of a second, whatever you can get away with the available light that you have. And you may have to crank the ISO a little bit. And that's the other thing. Make sure your ISO is very, very low, like ISO 200, so you can resolve as much detail as you can without getting noise in the shot. And then the only other thing that is not fixable, okay, is besides the lens not resolving, not being sharp enough to resolve, but it's also a matter of the size of the leaf relative to the size of the pixel, right? So if the leaf is smaller than the actual, once it's projected onto the sensor, if the size of the leaf is smaller than the pixel, it's going to look muddy. Uh, I, I'm not sure how to articulate that in a way that everybody will understand, but sometimes you're trying to resolve things that just aren't resolvable, because they're smaller than the actual projection per pixel on your sensor. Uh, so, for example, the 8mm fisheye is so wide, you're condensing a lot of things onto this tiny sensor, or and the leaves just uh, may just be too small to actually resolve using with the existing sensor. And you have to take into account that the lens itself is not perfect either, right? There no lens is. And that combination of losing a little bit of resolution through the lens and then potentially not having enough resolution on the sensor to resolve the the leaves. Because, for example, a 16 megapixel sensor will not resolve as many leaves as a 20 megapixel sensor, or 24 or 42 or 50 or however high they go now. So that's probably the third potential issue, the least likely, but I'm just thinking on the fly here. That's what I would think. So I can't think of really anything other than, and then also shoot in silent mode, because sometimes you get a tiny bit of shutter shock when you're doing landscape photography on a tripod or handheld. Doesn't matter. You're getting a little shutter shock potentially. So shoot in silent mode as well to see if that'll eliminate that other variable that might be causing, just a little bit of resolving power, right? So those are the tips I would give: faster shutter speed, silent shutter mode, and those are the two main things you can try. Turn off IBIS if you're on a tripod, and finally, you just may not be able to resolve more than you are already with the combination of the lens and sensor. Okay. And Thomas has a question. Wow, this might be a tough one. Something about a histogram. Let me find it. 1049. Thank you, Walter, and thank you, David, uh, for moderating my streams. It's extremely rare you have to do anything, right? This is the first time in months I think I've had an issue that I saw. Maybe you guys saw something, but okay. Let me get back to this histogram question. Where did it go? 1049 from Thomas. Here it is. And Michael White has pseudo answer to it. But the question is, why does the histogram represent 256 levels of brightness than say 0 to 100%? And the answer that Michael White gave is pretty accurate. He says that the histogram at 256 bits is based historically on Jpeg, which is 8-bit. So each channel has 256 levels. And, if you're not a computer guy, that was all gibberish, right? But basically, JPEGs don't have as much dynamic range because digitally they capture less information. But that's where we started with in digital photography. And the histogram is based off of that. So the histogram is limited to 256 levels because that's where we started with, I believe, in digital photography, on the consumer level anyway. It was all broken down into 8 bits at a time, and 8 bits can resolve 256 levels of shades or values. I should say 256 values per pixel. And that's kind of the answer. I hope that makes sense, that basically the histogram has been this way forever, for as long as I've seen it. And the digital histogram is based on an 8-bit scale. And 8 bits can only represent 256 values. So that's why. Now, could they do 12-bit, 16-bit, representing millions of values? Probably. Will it really be much use, and will it be very practical to represent values that way? Probably not. So maybe that's why they've never done it. Now, there might be some software that can do that I've never seen. Maybe Lightroom is virtually more than that. I don't know, but in camera, they show the 256 levels. uh, based on the values, the maximum values that can be represented in a JPEG. So thank you for that short answer, Michael. And uh, thank you, John. This is in reference to when I was talking to ImageWriter about resolving the leaves with the 8mm lens. It could also be atmospheric, depending how far away it is. Yeah, atmosphere can have a big impact on how much you can resolve uh, at objects far away as well. So that's the other factor, right? I mean, I always miss the obvious ones, but thank you. I'm happy to, or I'm glad you brought that up. And Walter says the histogram represents the embedded JPEG preview. Uh, that's true and false. That's true after you take the picture. Before you take the picture, the JPEG is representing the live view and whatever is being transmitted onto the sensor directly. And that, I assume, gets converted to an 8-bit preview that the histogram represents. So, yeah, after you take the picture, the histogram will represent an 8-bit JPEG that's embedded to your RAW file, or if you're only shooting JPEG, it represents the JPEG itself. But before you take the picture, um, it's actually representing what you see on your live view or EVF, which is probably still 8 bits. I'm about 99.9% sure it is, but we're splitting hairs here, right? I don't mean to splitting hairs here on what the histogram's about, but okay. And let's see, some more questions rolling in. And this is an interesting point from Walter. And Walter would know because he's hardcore into this kind of thing. Let me put this up here just in case this makes sense. Also understand that RAW files are not RGB, so you cannot get realistic histogram from it. So I guess that is true. Because a RAW image captures a lot more detail and information than you see in the EVF or even after you download it and preview it on your monitor. Because most monitors are RGB. And some monitors are 10-bit, which are it's kind of a fake 10-bit, but good enough. But for most people, we're working in an 8-bit world, right? Either we're looking at it on our phones or on our screens, in our cameras. But just realize that raw images represent represent up to 12 bits of information, at least in our Olympus cameras. And there's cameras out there. A lot of them do 14-bit. Some, I think, even do 16-bit now. Which the raw file captures a lot more information. So, and then it gets compressed down to an RGB color color palette. I guess that's what they call it. Within whatever you can display on your monitor or edit with, right? Again, we're really getting into the very nitty gritty about what we actually see versus what we capture with our cameras. Our cameras can capture much more detail than we'll ever really see in our monitors. But ironically, it captures a lot less than we see with our own eyes, right? Hence, we have to bracket and do all kinds of other techniques to get the maximum dynamic range from our cameras to match what our eyes see. So there's a lot of variables in there. And let's see, there's one here from John Matthews at 10:56. Oh, Randy's here. Hey, Randy, how are you? Okay, John Matthews says, hello. Hi, John. For video, Luma levels would be great. Olympus is late to the game on that. Um, that's I'm having a little trouble with the semantics. I've never seen Luma levels uh, in Olympus, so I've never run across it. If it's in my Panasonic camera or other camera, I've never noticed it. So I don't even know what Luma levels is. But Luma, based on the derivative of that, right, is Luma is light. So we're talking about the brightness of the image um, relative to, I guess, the colors. Because to me, luminance is a perceived brightness of a color, right? So for example, yellow looks brighter than, say, blue. So the luminance is higher on the yellow. However, technically, they are the same brightness. And brightness is different than luminance. To me, luminance is a perceived brightness of yellow being brighter than blue, but they can actually be the same brightness technically. They are the same brightness, um, but still appear different. Still, one is perceived brighter than the other. So, uh, like I said, if our Olympus cameras don't have that, then I've never seen it before and I can't really comment on it. But when I think about photo editing, sometimes I have to separate what is bright versus luminance, right? And this also, kind of leads into black and white photography as well, because I've seen filters out there that can convert black and white instead of doing a straight conversion, like we can just say show black and white in Photoshop, right? Hit the V key or whatever. There's software or plugins that will actually convert it based on luminance or perceived brightness. Uh, so it's converting from a color image to a luminance type black and white, and you get a little more contrast when you do it using these plugins that convert to black and white based on luminance. Um, so again, these are really advanced topics that I'm just getting started or rarely deal with myself. I'm a very simple photo editor. I just little sharpness, little saturation, and I'm done, right? But on an academic level, I try to understand what all these things mean, and that's the way I understand it. So if anyone else can elaborate that on in the chat section, go ahead, because I can't elaborate much more than that. That's kind of really pushing the limits of my knowledge there. And Randy had a comment here. Oh, Randy, yeah, let me talk about Randy. I watched your last video. That was really interesting. I'd be scared to do that though, uh but he says that he's trying to work up his game on his YouTube channel. So I'll bring that up again in case there's people here that haven't seen your channel. Um you know what I should do? I should just have a whole stream, you know, highlighting all of you guys that have your own channels or social media outlets, maybe you have your own web page, rather than doing a piecemeal like this, right? Um, let's see. Let me go into history. Your video should come right up in my history. Yeah. Why does that keep happening? Here's Randy's channel, and I'll give you a link to it. Uh, but Randy's a very competent, excellent photographer, and he's now starting to do some vlogging with his EM10 Mark II. And he basically drives around and and talks about where he's driving. So he's just starting out, but definitely check it out if you haven't. Just for fun. But yeah, I didn't watch this one yet. This one was 8 seconds. Let's watch 8 seconds of Randy here. Okay, so you did a time lapse. I see. Um, Doing some off-roading. Cool. Okay, Randy. Yeah, I'll definitely watch that one later. Okay. And I need to sit back a minute. I would rather be 1/3 to 1 under than the other way around. Blown highlights are killer. I guess that's some sort of question about exposure, but not directed to me. And Jan Garcia says, yes, Rob, the Olympus only creates 10 or 15 frame per second video, which is more like stop motion. Yes. On the Panasonic, you can create a time lapse with 24, 25, 30 frames per second, as well as 50 or 60. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that is definitely a more powerful feature, right? My question, though, I haven't tried it myself yet, and I haven't thought it through what the advantages might be. I'm sorry, let me pull it up so you guys can see what I'm reading. No, that's not what I'm reading. So this is in reference to the time lapse from Olympus versus Panasonic. So my question is based on this statement is how is creating a time lapse video different than just recording a video if you're at 24, 30 frames per second anyway? Why wouldn't you just push record? Because I know some people, they just record a movie and then speed it up, and that becomes a time lapse rather than doing it with the intervalometer, right? And to me, it seems like that's all we're doing. But I have to look at it. If I'm sure there's a reason to do it using the intervalometer instead of just recording a video. I just can't think of any right now. But interesting. That might be another Ask robtrek video once I figure out if there is a difference or advantage to doing it one way versus the other. Um, Lauren says, I only use JPEG. Some are a bit under, I guess. Oh, I see. And then Walter has some feedback here as well. This was at 10:59. Let's see, a sensor captures only one value per sensor cell, making it effectively monochrome. Yes, the Bayer filter over the sensor filters each sensor cell to only detect one color channel. Demosaic creates the RGB. Yes. So basically, the sensor on your camera is just a slab of silicon. And when light hits it, it changes the values of the silicon. Well, your camera charges the silicon with a certain voltage, and then when light hits it, that voltage changes, and that gets recorded as a value, right? A single value within a cell. And a pixel, honestly, is really just where the wires overlap each other, right? So you have these wires overlap, and in between is the silicon, and that silicon, the wires on your chip record the value after the light hits it. And it's only one value, but on top of the wires is a filter, red, green, or blue. So depending on if the silicon is behind a red filter, a blue filter, or a green filter, the value is recorded as red, green, or blue in the camera, or it's tagged with a red, green, or blue value, so that when it's convert it into a full color image, the demosaic process, it's converted, it becomes a color image, right? But effectively, our sensors are black and white. They only record values per pixel, right? Or per area. It's again, we're really pushing the limits of my knowledge here. I just have a very high level understanding, and I'm trying to explain it best I can. But I think that's where Walter's going is, and when I talk about wires, that kind of leads to the other conversation about backside illuminated sensors versus our normal CMOS sensors like in our Olympus cameras. It's just where they put the wires. Like in BSI or our Olympus cameras now, as they stand now, the wires are in front of the silicon, right? Like this. But on a BSI sensor, they put the wire sort of behind the silicon, is the way I understand it. So that if you don't have wires in the way of the silicon, it captures more information, right? There's more surface area to capture. So that's why BSI sensors are technically, they say they're more sensitive to light, which is a shorthand way of saying they capture more light, really, because there's no wires in the way of the silicon. The wires are behind the silicon capturing. So again, it's way beyond me how all that stuff really works, but that's how I understand it. Okay. And John Matthews has elaborated on something here. Oh, Noe's gone. All right, Noe, we'll see you later. Sorry, he had out. He headed out. I'm like 10 minutes behind. So we were talking about luma levels. Luma levels show the luma level from left to right versus the histogram that bar that shows where the image clips, only if the image clips. Okay. So that reminds me a little bit of my video, not my video, but when I'm recording video, when I do the editing in DaVinci Resolve, you can pull up scopes and then you can pull up other types of graphs. I think one of them might be like this Luma thing where it is on the screen, it sort of bounces up and down, right? Unlike a histogram, which shows that just throws the pixels onto the map, so to speak, how bright, how many bright pixels, how many dark pixels. So that's where you get the histogram. But a Luma thing actually moves up and down with the actual image that's in front of you, showing the actual brightness. So if you see a spike in the Luma chart or in the Luma scale, you know where to look for it in the image because it should line up. If that makes if I'm on the same page with you or not. If they're able to do that in camera, it seems like it'd be a simple firmware update, right? Because we're capturing that data anyway. It's just a matter of converting it into a Luma chart. Okay, and System Nature says better start updating my website and adding more clips to YouTube. Yep. Yeah, I'll do a stream one day maybe of all my viewers and of your YouTube channels and websites and things. Why not? Maybe, if you guys have your own YouTube channel or um, websites where you or Instagram, whatever it is, if you have any kind of social media, just go to my forum and post a link and say, start a thread said, please share, on your next stream, this, that, or the other thing, right? And that'll be a way I can kind of curate them a little bit. So I'm not just throwing everything up randomly. I can curate all of your posts of your websites and your YouTube channels and then organize that into a stream. Then we can all come in and have a big YouTube party website stream, right? Hold on a second. All right. So I'll work on that. Maybe I'll do a community post and have you guys point a link to my forum where you can post all that stuff. So let me give some thought to that. And then before I get too far, what I want to do is I I'm going to announce it again at the end because what time? 11:50. Oh, I haven't been on that long, but Marco was here earlier in the stream, and he has a channel. Speaking of people that have channels, he has a channel and a website dedicated to basically computer hardware, right? And computers in general, laptops, desktops, Macs, all that stuff. And we're going to do a collaboration next week on Thursday. He's going to be my guest on the channel, and we're going to talk about um, computers with respect to photo editing, right? And photographers and video editing. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to post some links tomorrow for that and a little more description. I need to organize it a little bit, but we'll be on Thursday together. So I'm always on Thursday anyway, so it shouldn't be new to for a lot of you here. But if you're new to my channel, I stream usually Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Uh, and this coming up Thursday, I'm going to have Marco on my channel as a guest. And we're going to talk about, what are some feasible upgrades, for if you want to upgrade your laptop or your desktop to get better photo editing, or do you need to buy a new system? We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I just need to organize it a little bit, and then I'll post a link probably tomorrow. Okay, and then System Nature says, oh yeah, better start updating. That's not the one I wanted to show. There's another one here, 1105. Right after that, here it is. This was in respect to the time lapse we were talking about. Long time lapse shows amazing movement you never see. The only slight issues is getting the lighting exactly the same for each shot. Yeah. I've done time lapses before. I think what I did is I just put it in manual mode so that the lighting changes naturally on its own. Versus, if you put it on auto mode, for example, it's going to adjust the lighting in camera to even the exposure out, and that might look a little unnatural. And that's the way I've done it because I like that natural change in light versus, digitally applying, auto exposure in some way to adjust for the light. So, I'm not a big time lapse guy either, but I I, I see where you're coming from. It can be difficult to adjust for exposure over time, right? And we deal with that a lot in video. So I think a lot of the challenges that you have as a videographer would apply to time-lapse photography, if not more so in some ways. Um, Music Sound Gear said the conversation is getting complicated. I like PhD cameras. Press here for dummy. No, you're not dumb. Trust me, I'm with you though, man. When we start getting into the really fine details of how things start, I mean, I'm not a frickin' engineer or an astronaut. You know what I mean? It's like I'm just a guy with a camera, and I try to read up and watch and learn as much as I can about different aspects about photography and how our cameras work, so I can try to take better exposures or better pictures. But yeah, I'm not going to read, all these white papers about, how things work. I do sometimes, actually. I'm lying. I used to. I used to read all that stuff, and all it did was just clog up my brain with stuff, and sometimes just keeping things simple is better, right? Exposure compensation, plus or minus one. Maybe do a little bracketing. Just simple things that you can do. And really getting into the weeds of how all this works sometimes is just makes my brain, what's the word? Wrinkles my brain? It wrinkles my brain when I do all that stuff. And John Matthews is confirming that lumen levels are exactly what you see in Da Vinci. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And John Truman has a question. Let me see if I can pull it up. 1113. This was John's comment about lumen levels when we were talking about that. John Truman, on a more basic level, do you recommend any starting settings for handheld night street photography using OMD? Yeah, basically set your auto ISO to the maximum values that your camera can handle. Usually it's between 200 and 6400 for auto ISO, but it can be 200 to 25,600, on the older models. All of the newer models are kind of limited between 200 and 6400 for some reason. It's a totally arbitrary decision. And then you can shoot shutter priority or aperture priority. I typically shoot an aperture priority and leave the shutter wide open. I'm sorry, the aperture wide open to capture as much light as I can. But then sometimes I don't get enough shutter speed, right? So some people prefer to shoot shutter priority so they have a minimum shutter speed and then just let the aperture go where it needs to go. But I think the key thing really is just making sure you have the auto ISO set to its maximum range in cameras so that it does keep your shutter speed or keeps your ISO as low as possible and your shutter speed as high as possible. And that's what I do. I shoot auto ISO, aperture priority, leave the aperture wide open, meaning the lowest value, f3.5 or f1.8, whatever the maximum aperture is for my lens. And then I let the camera handle the shutter speed. And I found that I can hand hold down to about 1/20th of a second pretty reliably for street shooting. And that's usually fast enough. You may get a little motion blur, but that's okay for street photography. So it depends on what you're going for, but those are the settings I use whenever I go on a photo walk. And I don't worry about ISO being high because you're in low light. It's going to be noisy, grainy anyway. So just don't sweat it. Sometimes I bring a tripod with me for if I want to do some particular architectural type images where I get these really sharp, clear images even in low light because I'm on a tripod. So I can set the ISO low, I can set the shutter speed long as I want, and then on a steady tripod. Sometimes I do that, and I've gotten amazing images even with like a TG5. But generally speaking, you're talking about handheld, yeah. Aperture priority, and then just watch your shutter speed. If it starts dropping below 1/20th of a second, you may have to switch to shutter priority mode. And depending what your tolerance is for image motion in your shots. And Jan is saying that it gives you the ability to create a smoother time lapse. All the difference with video is that with video, so we're talking about the time lapse feature. This is at 11:17. So let me share this. So it gives you the ability to create a smoother time lapse, although the difference with video is that with video you cannot use a slower shutter speed to create those slightly faded smooth time lapse. Ah, I see. Yeah, when you do a time lapse using the intervalometer, you can set the shutter speed down below 1/24th of a second, right? Whereas in video, I think that's probably the slowest shutter speed you can select. is 1/24th of a second, and even then, it's not using the 180 rule, so it may look a little unnatural. But if you're doing a time lapse and compressing it, but I see where you're coming from. That makes sense. Like I said, I don't use it much, so I don't have a lot of experience comparing the two methods. But it makes sense because with an intervalometer using time lapse, you can set the shutter speed down to 1/10 of a second or 1 second if you want. You know, anything you want because it's basically a photo, right? Then you create the time lapse after you take the photos. Very good point. Thank you, Jen. That makes a lot of sense. And Roberto says, should ask Marco about the movie editing specs also. Yes, we are going to talk about that. Yes, I will compare. Jan is suggesting I compare my, I have a G85 and an S5. I don't have an G9. As a comparison to Olympus. That's interesting. Yeah, now that the weather's warmer, I can just go out in my backyard and test that, right? Because I do have a little bit of an open area that I can test that on. And Joey Tide says, hello, I still taking photos and trying to keep my head above water in America. System Natura good. Oh, well, hello, Joey. I'm glad you could join us today. And I have a new respect for YouTubers on the time involved with processing and upload. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Randy, wait till you really get into it if you ever do. Oh my God. You know what I was thinking of doing? Um, Let me scroll down. If I missed your question, you have to ask it again at this point because if I scroll up, I'm gonna get lost. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't skip any intentionally. So if you have any, just ask it again. I'll be happy to. Or if I didn't answer the previous question correctly, just let me know. Uh, and Roberto knows too, right? Roberto, like I said, Roberto Di Donato has a channel on YouTube as well under that name. So search for that, where he basically vlogs and shares tips and tricks. Anything he learns about Olympus, he shares it with you, right? So obviously he watches, all of our channels, Jimmy, me, Peter. But sometimes, when he learns something new from his own experience or from one of our channels, he shares it with his own voice. And that's the thing about YouTube is, yeah, I could, Peter can make a video, Robin can make a video, Jimmy can make a video. We can all make videos on, say, exposure compensation. But all of us will have a different voice on that topic. And sometimes one voice will connect to you better than another, right? So that's why I think I think that's why, our little community here we're very mature, right? And very self-aware. And uh and Roberto is now part of that community, right? On YouTube anyway. And he can share his voice on the same topic that I cover, right? So if he makes a best settings video or he makes a video about, I don't know, his own lens reviews, whatever it might be, um, it'll be in his own voice, and that may connect with you and make more sense to you than my videos or Jimmy's or Peter's, right? Or Robin's. So that's why I wanted to. That's why I'm, just on the fly. I was thinking maybe sharing YouTube channels with others uh, in another stream, and just, I have to curate them a little bit. So I'll think of a way to do that. But I think that'd be an interesting stream. And then Randy says, how much time do you average making a YouTube video? Ballpark figure. Okay, not counting the time it takes to actually record the footage, because that's very random. Sometimes an hour, sometimes all day, right? The actual content recording, right? And taking the pictures. Once I have all of the content, all of the images, all of the videos that I want to use, B-roll, JPEGs, all of that stuff, maybe some graphics, right? Once I have all of that stuff on my computer to import into DaVinci Resolve, which is the video editor I use, it's a minimum, I'd say 2 hours. If it's a very simple video, right? Like these Ask robtrek videos are very simple, you know, relative to all the other stuff, my vlogging and my other tutorials. Like the last two Ask robtrek videos I made, I'd say from start to finish was about 4 hours. So there was about an hour or so of recording and creating content, and another 2 to 3 hours of editing and uploading and getting it finally onto YouTube in a form with the thumbnail and all of that. So, you have to design a thumbnail, create descriptions, keywords, all of that stuff. So 3 to 4 hours per Ask robtrek video. The tutorials, on the other hand, and vlogs, not counting the time to record the video and create the content, but after I get everything onto the computer, it can take 4 to 8 hours of editing to get those correct. So uh, that's if I'm recording in if I'm recording in 1080p, about 4 to 6 hour range. If I'm recording in 4K, which I do once in a while, I'm thinking about just never doing it again, but once in a while I'll do 4K. That bogs everything down on the computer down to, it's a 6 to 8 hour process at that point to do the editing, right? So that's the ballpark, just to give you some perspective. So for example, like I said, the Ask robtrek videos are 3 to 4 hours start to finish. The vlogs, where I go out and walk around and take pictures, is 4 to 6 hours, and then the tutorials can take about 8 hours to do the editing and everything like that. Um, I'm sure once, I don't know, if I really was more consistent, I could probably do it faster, but that's how long it takes me. Now Roberto says, yes, agree 100%. My video clips of photos or video take me ages to do. Even the most appropriate music takes a long time to source. Yeah, I I have a very small library of music that you can get from YouTube for free, uh, that I use. So if you watch my videos, you'll hear the same music over and over again. There's a few changes here and there, but and a lot of times I don't put any music in my video at all because it's just not appropriate for a lot of my videos, right? Because I'm doing tutorials. Nobody wants to hear, Bach playing in the background, for example. If you want music, just turn on your own stereo. Oh, I got to show you that too. I set up a stereo here in my little room. But yeah, uh, John Allen says, I tend to do fast video edits and sling them up. Yeah. I mean, you can do these quickly, right? Because think about it. If I stream for a couple of hours, I can go back and edit for about another hour and put up. I did this in the very beginning. When I started doing live streaming, you would see the live stream full on couple hours, but then there'd be another 20 or 30-minute video after that, which were just the highlights from the live stream. And that would only take about another hour to edit and put up, because the content's created because it's a live stream. So all I have to do is edit. And those edits are very simple because it's just a talking head video, right? Nothing going on. But okay, 11:24. So I'm about 10 minutes behind. System Natura says, I'm not shooting a lot of time with manual mode for wildlife. I sometimes use auto ISO, but this can be a problem. Luckily, M1X has ISO buttons, so quick change is not too difficult. Okay. And Randy was said, I'd love to see a video on your workflow for video production. I was actually thinking about the next time I do a robtrek video, like Ask robtrek video, like the last two I did, what I might do is just stream live while I'm making it, right? From start to finish. Like I start with my intro. It says, hi, this is robtrek with another Ask Rob video. And then you can see me like just jibber jabbering how many times I have to re-record things because I, mess something up in my thought process. I don't know. Would you guys watch that? It might be like a 3-4 hour live stream of me making a video and then publishing it. And then probably within 15 minutes after the live stream, you can actually watch the finished product, right? Um, that would be kind of neat. I was thinking. I just thought that might be kind of neat. So I might do that. Because that would be a lot easier than me trying to make a video about how I make videos. If I just live stream the frickin' thing from start to finish, then I don't have to do anything. The content and the video is done. And all you have to do is watch the finished product, right? Um, and Scott says, where are these Ask Rob Trek videos? I can't seem to find them. Uh, if you look at my channel, the very last video posted is a Ask Rob Trek. Let me. It's probably easier to find by episode number though. So where's my mouse? See this one here? This is an Ask Rob Trek. It's episode number 291 and episode number 290. So episode number 291 and 290. So if you just search my channel for by episode number, so do EP 91, 291 or EP 290, it should come right up. But let me just give you a link to one. Copy link address. Okay. So there's a link to my last one that I did. And Giuseppe Potenza says, I use my gear for sports photography, volleyball. I use at 90 degrees, 90% AF continuous, and note that AFC during burst low lost focus acquired on the previous frame. I suppose it depends on the AF lock. So Giuseppe has a sort of a sports action type question, and I'm not a sports action photographer, but let me put it up for everybody. 1127. And noted that AFC during the burst low lost the focus acquired on the previous frame. I suppose it depends on the AF lock, +1 plus, yeah. Okay, so I can't answer this one. I'm just not a sports action guy. But there are videos on those settings. I think Matthew Gasqui has a video for like birds in flight with the EM1 Mark II where he talks about that. Let me see if I can find that real quick. He talks about those settings. Let me try and find it for you. I search his channel. Olympus. I'll just put Olympus. All right, start with this video. This video here. Birds in flight review with the M1X, the M1 Mark II, and the M5 Mark III. And he does an excellent job, but then I think there's links in the down here, the written article. So let me put these two links in for you. This will help you with those autofocus settings, I believe. So here's a link to the YouTube video. Here's a link to the website article. But I believe in the article he does go into those settings in detail. It's been a while since I've looked at this. There he's talking about different targeting modes, his hit rate. But yeah, that's where I would start. That's the best I can do for you is point you to this guy. I'm sorry I can't answer that directly, Giuseppe, because I just don't mess with those settings at all. Oops, wrong window. This one. And all right. And then Lysippus, how are you? Says, hi Rob. In the last stream, I think you showed a bird taken. Let me go to that question. 1128. So the question is, hi Rob. In the last stream, I think you showed a bird taken with flash. At what distance is flash effective, and what flash power settings do you recommend? Ah, okay. So yeah, I did show some stuff. It was on my Instagram. Let me. So on my Instagram, right, I had these bird pictures. Like here's one. So this bird was about 10 meters away or 30 feet, and I had the flash on full power. And then this one here, the bird was probably maybe 3 or 4 meters away, 10 or 12 feet. And I believe I had the flash still on full power. And then here's another one. So you can see it gives a nice little specular in the eye, if nothing else, right? On the bird. And I was using this flash. I just put this flash on the top of my it still has the frickin' saran wrap around because it was snowing, and this flash is not weather sealed. But this is the Godox V1 or Flashpoint model something, but it's a Godox V1. This is a 76 watt second power flash, so it's pretty powerful for an on-camera flash. And yeah, I was most likely at full power. If I had to adjust it, I can just turn it down. I shoot flash manually most of the time. I rarely use TTL, but that'll give you some idea. So an on-camera flash that's a full power flash like that one, right, uses a lithium battery. Uh, on-camera flashes that use a lithium battery have very fast recycle times and are generally a little brighter. But those things are good for up to, in daylight, like on a snowy day, you're good up to about, I'd say 10 meters is about the limit that the flash can reach and illuminate the bird enough that it makes any difference in the final exposure. At night, you get a little more range, right? As the light dims down towards twilight era, because I've tried to use flash on birds when it was more closer to twilight. Uh, and the challenge I ran into then was you start getting the red eye or the white eye. You get weird artifacts shooting flash at night. So I'm not that experienced with it, but the few times I tried during the day, it did make a nice difference. Like if you're walking in the woods in a shaded area, flash will make a difference even in the middle of the day because you're in a shaded area. But you just have to do a couple test shots. I would, if the birds are far away, do a couple test shots at full power and see the results you get. It doesn't have to be on the bird directly. You can just test it on the branches and the trees, right, and see if it makes a difference. But yeah, that's all. And then the further the bird is away, the more powerful flash you're going to need. So you may need to upgrade to a Godox 8200, which is still fairly portable, but it's 200 watt second bulb, right? And that will give you some good distance, even better distance. And you can you can buy the adapters with the round head for them. I didn't buy one, but you can buy, so it'll focus the beam a little better. But yeah, that's all. Very, very straightforward. Um, I tend to vast video edits, and yep, I read that. And Barana has a question. Gosh, looks like a firmware question, but hold on, let me find it. 1131. Oh, here it is. It says here, my question about firmware update from 1.0 and skip 1.1. It was quite simple using OWS connect the camera, then following the instructions. Oh, yeah, you had that question from last stream, so I'm glad that worked. Yeah, like I said, thankfully the software handles all that for you, and you don't have to worry about it. But the question was, if you're on firmware 1.0 and they release firmware 3.0, do you have to update to everything in between before updating the 3.0? And the answer is no, the software takes care of it for you. So just follow the instructions as you're doing the update in the software Olympus workspace, and you should be fine. So I'm glad that worked. And Roberta says my system keeps crashing, so the live stream next week will be good. And System Jor says, I find that Audio Jungle have a large library of non-copyrighted music and not too expensive. Okay. Good to know. And Scott has a very good point here for Barana, is that sometimes when they do a firmware update, they update the manual online. So you'll see the manual version 1.2 versus the original manual 1.0 that will explain the new features that a firmware update might add. So that's a great point. So also check to see if there's a new manual associated with the firmware update that you can download. And it says here, System Natures asks, a live stream of how you do a video clip would be great. Show me what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. You know, if I do a live stream like that, it'd probably take me twice as long as it would if I were just doing it not live stream, because then I'm conscious of the other camera being there, right? Uh, so, but I don't know. I thought it might be fun. I mean, I'm sitting here making the video anyway. If I just turn, I would probably use my phone to live stream it, right? Because I have to use all the cameras I have to actually create a video. So I'll just set my phone up. What difference, you know? And who knows, maybe somebody will buy me a coffee while I'm doing the live stream, make a couple bucks. Ugh. And and then Roberto, like I said, Roberto has a YouTube channel as well. Um, 12 hours of editing, yeah. Pretty much, yeah, your day is gone, if not 2 days of editing. Ask Peter, Robin, Jimmy, they'll tell you, man. And their production quality is much higher than mine. Oh my God. So I don't even want to, think about how much time they spend, doing some of their videos. I noticed Peter's switched over to the Insta360. I hate mine, but he seems to be doing okay with it. Somebody's asking about Ellie. Hi, hey Rick, how are you? Good to see you. Let me scroll down a little bit. I need to end the stream here soon. Oh, why is this? Where's the ask? Somebody's asking where the Ask robtreks are again. Um, what is this page? It's episode number 290 or 291. The last two that I did are Ask robtrek videos. And TK has a question. Um, when the heck did you sneak in, Rick? Good to see you though. I haven't seen you in a few streams, but let's see. I'm trying. Oh, there's a question here. Have I ever done wedding photography? I think this year will be busy. No, I've never done wedding. That's way too much work. I mean, I'd love to crash a wedding though, but I don't think I'd ever do a photography at a wedding. It's just not my genre. I do real estate photography. And I know I saw a question here from TK 1150. Let me put that up. Welcome to the channel, TK. Always good to have new viewers here to the stream anyway. Maybe you've been a subscriber for a long time, but what is the best budget camera? Well, if you want to talk about Olympus cameras, the EM10 Mark II, I think hands down, to me is the best budget camera. You probably have to buy it used on eBay or wherever you can find it for a couple $100. And I'd say it's as good as almost in terms of image quality, as good as really anything Olympus has out even now, or any camera really, any Micro Four Thirds camera. Another good budget camera in the EM10 series is the Mark III and the Mark IV. But then you go up to about $400 or $500 for the Mark III. Then you go up to about $600 or $700 for the Mark IV. So I don't know what your budget is, but it escalates quite quickly, right? Depending on what model you get. But EM10 Mark II, if you can still find that new or slightly used in excellent condition, that to me is the best budget camera. Another one that's commonly available at a budget is the Panasonic GX85, and you can usually get that with two kit lenses included with it for about 500 bucks. So the Panasonic GX85. Now these are older 16 megapixel cameras, but they're still extremely capable and take excellent pictures. Okay, so those are the two I would recommend as a budget choice is EM10 Mark II with the kit lens or GX85 that'll come with two kit lenses for 500 bucks. And you can get an EM10 Mark II slightly used with two or three lenses for less than 500. And both are excellent cameras. They're just different formats. The EM10 Mark II is more of a DSLR style like this, where the EVF is in the center. And the GX85 is a rangefinder style where I have it right here, where the EVF is on the right side. So these are great budget cameras in my opinion. Now, other companies like Nikon and Canon and Fuji, they may have some cameras that will be in that price range, but I don't have any experience with those, so I can't really comment on them. But in the $500 price range or lower, those are the two cameras I can recommend and that I have experience with. And I used the M10 Mark II professionally for my real estate photography for a couple years before getting the EM5. So you don't have to worry about image quality and all of that. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And that was TK at 1150. Let's see. Jonas says he would add the EM5 Mark II to the budget list. Yes, EM5 Mark II, definitely. That's going to get you closer to the $500 range. And then you have to add an lens. So, I mean, if you do your shopping, you can always find better deals than I'm talking about here. I'm just giving you kind of a general idea of the prices I've been seeing. Of course, I've heard people get much better deals. Like somebody told me they got an EM5 Mark II with two lenses for 300 bucks last week. And I'm like, man, that's a smoking deal. You know, I paid 700 for the same thing, right? With one lens. So there's all kinds of things. Oh, Ulf is here. How are you? I plan to go and test my old EM10 with the analog film codec. Wow, okay. Well, it's good to see you, Ulf. I don't see you too often, but it's always good to see you. And Soft Fun is asking about lenses here. I think this is it, right? 40 to 150 Pro versus 100 to 400. If you could only have one, which would you go for? I would go for the 40 to 150 Pro because I like the f2.8 aperture to give me the shutter speed that I need, so I can use a shutter speed, faster shutter speed if I want to. And I think the optics will give you sharper images in that focal range than the 100 to 400 at 100 millimeters. You know, where they overlap, I think the 40 to 150 will be sharper than the 100 to 400, again, where the focal lengths overlap. I personally rarely need to crop in all the way out to 400 millimeters. You know, I'm usually good up to 150 millimeters anyway. Sure, there's times when, yeah, I love shooting really long, 250, 300 millimeters. Uh, but you said if I have to pick one for the kind of photography I do, it'd be the 40 to 150. And primarily because it is a focal length I use more often, but because of the f2.8 and the better optics, in my opinion. And John's asking, when's your next photo edit stream? I'm gonna probably do it on Tuesday, so look for a link tomorrow. I'll have to pick out an image and all of that, but yeah, Tuesday I'm planning on doing one. And Michael Gerard says, oh, hey, Michael, how are you? I see you comment time to time on my videos, but I didn't realize you came to my streams too. That's cool. Um, says, I still use my GX80. Great camera. It's such a bargain now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the last time I looked at the GX80, 85 series, it was 500 bucks with two lenses, brand new. And it's a great camera, no question. I mean, I'd say it's right on par with the M10 Mark II. It's just a slight preference, what you prefer. The GX85 has a better touchscreen menu and menu system in general. The M10 Mark II, I think, has a little better focusing, particularly in low light. Uh, and then from there, it's just what form factor do you prefer? And I think I'm all caught up here. So last call for any questions. If I missed your question, now is the time to ask it again, or a new question. But last call for questions. Uh, because I didn't even talk about the one thing I've been trying to talk about. Unbelievable. Um, Randy says the 40 to 150 is also a great walk-around lens. Yeah, I would agree. It's just what I guess the way to put it is not so big that you don't want to bring it. It's a larger, heavier lens, but it's not terrible. The 100 to 400 is not bad either, relatively speaking. Uh, for the focal length that you get, it's a small compact lens. I saw one. David Crooks bought one, and I saw it on the last photo walk we went on together. I should ask to borrow it, so I could take a few pictures. But um, Scott's asked, "Oh, what did I want to talk about?" Okay, so last thing before I go is let me pull it up. So this is going to take a second for me to open it up and stuff. But I wanted to show you guys. I use the Adobe Photoshop megapixel upscale whatever stuff, and I just wanted to share with you the results real quick. I mean, I didn't want to delve into it for a long time. Peter Forsgaard has a couple of videos on it. Let's see, 2018. And it's the power plant. Man, I was busy in 2018. I'm just in Lightroom now. I don't want to bore you guys looking at my dumb face while I'm looking for this image. Where? Okay, I'm pretty sure it was 2018. Star, let me try 2 stars. No. One, let me, Alexandria? Dang it. Okay, well, we'll select raw. No. Oh, maybe it was 2019. Let me see. 2019. Alexandria. Oh, and it was warm, so it's definitely right in this area. All right, scroll, scroll. I'm losing everybody, right? I can't believe it. Why is it not? I thought it would be so easy to find. Is it under 2019, 2018? Alexandria. I know it's Alexandria. Oh, here it is. Dang. All right. So let me go to the folder. God, sorry about that, guys. All right. Are you guys still with me? I hope. Let me scroll the chat down a little bit. All right. So let me see if I put in no digital negatives. Yeah. So let's look at. All right. This is 20 by 15, and this one is 20 by 15. All right, I'm going to show you a comparison between the super high res shot. So here's the raw image. Now let's not use that one. I'm so not prepared for this. Yeah, all right, let's compare these two. All right, so um, on the left is the high resolution. I did this high res shot mode on my tripod, and on the left here is the high res shot mode. So if I punch in, and I use the EM1 Mark II with a 75 millimeter at f5.6, it needs to render. It's really crushing my computer here. And this one here on the right is the high res, or not high res, but the upscaling in Adobe, that new feature, right? All right, I'm gonna have to do this another time. It's not hard to find the resolved here. It's just slow. All right, so on the left here, did I get the same? Let me go to this wheel and this wheel. All right, so I'm here. Oh my God, did I just? No, I didn't. All right. I had the two images pulled up and I accidentally. It was this one and this one. All right, we're going to try one more time. It's coming. All right. On the left side here is the high-res shot mode, the 80 megapixel image, raw image. And there's no editing applied. On the right side is the upscale that Adobe Photoshop uses. So I upscaled the image on the left to the image on the right. And let's calculate the megapixels here. So we have, 80 megapixels on the left. You can see it says 10368 times 7. So that's 80 megapixels. And the other one is what? 20736 times 15552. 322 megapixels. So the left is 80 megapixels, the right is 322 megapixels. And I can't, you can see all of the artifacts and everything, whereas this one is a lot smoother. All I have to do is add a little sharpening, and I don't know, I don't see the point of upscaling to 322 megapixels. Uh, Whoops. So let's look at a little brighter. Well, this was my focus point, was right in here. All right, like look at this. Look at the grading on the fence or on this railing. And then if we look at it on this one, come on. My computer's really slow here. But yeah. So my point is really is that upscaling, you don't get any more detail. This is really the best example, is the little wheel here. You don't really get any more detail. You just get a bigger picture. And then, if anything, the detail looks worse to me. Like, look at the chain here, look at the chain here. Look at all these artifacts everywhere. I don't know if upscaling is worth it, you know? Because Peter did the video, but he only cropped in 100%. I couldn't see anything at 100%. So I'm punched in here 300%. Now you can see the differences, right? Okay, but that's that. That's what I wanted to show you guys. I did a terrible job showing everybody, but um, yeah, you guys were talking a lot amongst yourselves while I was doing that. And then robtrek, isn't it intended for when you need to crop but retain image size? I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know why you would need to do that. I mean, I don't crop and retain image size. I guess. But Michael White says, finally, Yeah, he thinks Topaz Gigapixel is better. Maybe. Yeah, because you can see that the upscaling in Photoshop had a lot of artifacts when you really punch in at 300%. So, I don't know. I have to, again, I'm not like, I haven't been doing photography that long, so maybe there's 100 different reasons you want to do that, but I can't think of any for my use that I want to upscale an image. Even after I crop in and then upscale it for size, God, that's a very niche thing. Very, very niche, as far as I can tell. But I just wanted to share that with you because after I saw Peter's video, I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know Photoshop could do that." So I tried it, and I'm like, "Well, whoop-de-doo," you know. Rob, your sound system in the office. What do you mean my sound system in the office? Yeah, but Super Res is a free edition. Yes. Uh, what do you mean, Liam? Your sound system in the office? If you're asking me what I'm using, it's just it. I did a review on this microphone. It's the Comica VM20, I believe. Yeah, Comica VM20, and it's just plugged into my laptop. That's all I use for audio. If that's what your question is. Um, but okay. David Crook says the upside might be. Oh, my sound system. Thank you. I did say I was going to show you guys that. So you guys remember how where's that here's the thing. He meant my stereo system. So I did mention that earlier. So you guys remember when I told you that I got all these light stands, I don't know what to do with them. I don't know why I bought so many. Well, I found a use for them. Let me see if I can show you. See which camera would be best. Probably this one. Is it on? Yeah. Um, wait, it's not on. It's not going. Oh, let me plug it into this one. Seriously, why is nothing coming on? Well, this one's on. I'll just use this. All right, after this, I'm gonna go. Uh, so I got I need to, I'm using my light stands now for my speakers. There's one there, and then uh, I just have a little amp here, right? Just below my computer. So I can turn that on. Um, and then I have my other speaker on another light stand over there. The quarter 20 screw fits perfectly into the quarter 20 screw in the bottom of the speaker. So anyhow, uh, that's that's my stereo here in my office, and then I just play Amazon Music in the background or whatever streaming service I have to play some music while I'm listening to some tunes, and it sounds okay. I mean, the acoustics in this room are so bad anyway. Yeah, send me you guys. I know you guys, Nature with Music, and Music Sound Gear. I guarantee you guys have awesome sound systems. I got the consumer level crap, like the home theater receivers, and the only vintage system I have, which is a component system, I need to recap it because some of the caps have blown, because it's 40 or 50 years old now. So I need to get it recapped, and then I'll have, sort of a system that I'll enjoy on a personal level, even though it's not technically a great sounding system. Let's hear Guns N' Roses. I can't play I can't play any music on here. I'll get banned. But yeah, post if you guys have a neat stereo system, post it in my forum. I'd love to see it because I'm not an audiophile, but I do like looking at stereo systems and just seeing how you guys are set up. All of my stuff are hand-me-downs. Like these Bose speakers that I have here are from like the 90s, maybe even the 80s. They're basically reference speakers, and my cousin was moving from one house to another, and he was just going to throw them away. And I said, "Well, I'll take them." And they sat in. Oh, my mom. I need to hold on. Hey, mom. Yeah. No, no, I don't need anything. But thanks. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Bye bye. All right. Anyway, yeah, go to my forum and post any pictures you have of your systems. But yeah, these speakers were thrown out. He was going to throw them out, so I took them. And they sat in my basement for the last 15 years, or 10, more than 10 years anyway. And I know he had them in his basement for 10 or more years. And then this little stereo receiver down as well as also his sitting in the basement forever. So this was like from my cousin's house from more than 10 years ago, and I know they were sitting in his basement for more than 10 years. So it's really old stuff. And John says, I've done some upscaling of handheld high-res landscape images and found a new feature in Adobe works very well with no artifacts, and it's pretty speedy. Oof. I'm not having the same experience. It took a long time for it to render. Uh, I have to talk about Marco about that. And the system says both speakers are fantastic and do not take up much space. Yeah, they sound pretty good. All right, Steve, we'll see you later. The speakers are great for putting plant pots on. Yeah. Yeah, I got some I have some old Pioneer vintage speakers that go with my Pioneer vintage, you know, component system that I need to replace the caps on. I'm debating if I should try it myself or send it in and get it done. If I send it in, it's going to be a couple $100 minimum to recap the few caps that are bad. Or I can do it myself for about $5. And if I mess it up, then I can give it to them to fix. I don't know. It has sentimental value. There's no particular reason I want, particular reason that I want to get that system fixed other than sentimental values because they don't sound as good as the newest systems out there. Um, but okay, you guys have a good rest of your Sunday. I have to go. I'm getting hungry too. And I'll be back on Tuesday, most likely with a photo editing live stream. Stay tuned for Thursday live stream with Marco, where we're going to talk about computers for uh, photo editing and video editing, and all kinds of other things going on. I got lots of things going in the background now that I'm feeling better. So I appreciate you guys watching and spending time with me today. As always, thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.